A common complaint you'll hear out there about the Adirondack Park Agency is that this government entity that has a huge influence over homes and businesses and people's property in the Adirondacks isn't exactly out there super public. The APA does hold regular meetings like today, but few people go. And some people feel like they don't know who these commissioners are, really. And the meetings are held in a nondescript building in Ray Brook. That could soon change as the APA considers a much more visible move to downtown Saranac Lake. That's today's story of the day.
Support for Story of the Day is provided by CCOM Credit Union, serving the financial needs of people throughout northern New York and Vermont. In person, online at ccom.org, and on your smartphone.
Hey, I'm David Sommerstein. It's Thursday, June 15th. First up, a Clinton County school district has a new mascot. According to the Adirondack Daily Enterprise, Saranac Central School will now be represented by the Saranac Spartans. They were formerly called the Chiefs, but under a new state rule, public schools can no longer use indigenous names, mascots, and logos. Districts who don't change their native theme mascot by the end of the school year risk losing foundation aid from the state. The Enterprise reports that the final vote was between the Spartans and the Wolves, and it garnered more than 2,600 votes. The name Spartans will become official on July 1st. A longtime Canton resident turned 105 years old on Tuesday. Community members celebrated florist Frank White. Our intern, Kelly Daphnis, was there for the party and has our story.
At the Canton Historical Collection on Main Street, the small room's filled with people with well wishes for Frank White. There's a cake decorated with a canoe on it. White was a big paddler. He tells me much of Canton has changed a lot since he was a young farmer in the 1930s.
I used to walk down the street when I was young and talk to farmers, both French and English. It was a different story. Farming has changed. A lot of the buildings are the same, except that they've resurfaced them, so they're better. I'd like to see them 100 years from now.
White proudly recounts his lifelong commitment to his career as a farmer and dedicating over 4 decades to his flower business, White's Flowers, which is still in operation under new owners. White emphasizes the importance of the past 10 to 15 years, during which he found peace and self-reflection. In offering wisdom to the younger generation, White says,
"When you wake up, and wake up when you get up. If they want to be ambitious, they be ambitious. If they want to drag their feet."
Here he shrugs. One of Frank's closest friends and driver, Karen Leahy, says White is still active, has morning coffee with his friends, and goes on walks.
His birthday wish, just happy birthday, Frank, and enjoy every day as if it was your last. And to be 105 today is just awesome. Yeah.
Frank White, a living, breathing presence, stands as an embodiment of Canton's rich history, representing 105 years of a lifelong remarkable tale. For North Country Public Radio, I'm Kelly Daphnis in Canton, New York.
The Adirondack Park Agency might be moving to downtown Saranac Lake. The APA wants to renovate a historic building as part of its new headquarters. There's still a lot of details that need to be ironed out, and the APA wouldn't move for another few years. Emily Russell has our story.
For as long as the APA has existed, they've been in the same brown building halfway between Saranac Lake and Lake Placid. The original structure was built with logs salvaged from a blowdown in the 1950s. There have been additions and renovations over the last 50 years, but APA Executive Director Barbara Rice says the building is not in great shape.
There are gaps in the logs, which leads to loss of, heat and energy problems. But we also have this lovely situation where we have mice and insects and bats getting into the building.
Rice says there's also rot in some of the logs, windows that don't fully shut, poor ventilation throughout. So a few years ago, New York State set aside $29 million for the APA to build a brand new energy-efficient headquarters. Rice says it's taken time to find the right fit, but she thinks they've finally settled on a spot in Saranac Lake.
It wasn't necessarily a pinpoint in time where it was like, ta-da. It was more like it evolved. And in talking through with the team here, it became the one property and location that really stood out to us.
So I'm standing in downtown Saranac Lake, and I am in front of the property that the APA wants to move to. Right now there's a big 3-story slate gray building here overlooking Lake Flower. It's really a kind of an iconic building in downtown Saranac Lake. It's known as the Paul Smith's Electric Light and Power Building. If you've been to Saranac Lake, you've probably seen it. It's that big, boxy building with arched windows. It's almost 100 years old, and there's a little powerhouse right behind it for the Lake Flower Dam. Both buildings, at 1 and 3 Main Street, are owned by the village of Saranac Lake.
The honest to God truth is 1 and 3 Main are beautiful historical landmarks that need a lot of work that the village really can't afford.
That's Saranac Lake Mayor Jimmy Williams. He says he's excited about the APA potentially investing nearly $30 million into the property.
To see that building completely restored, I think would be nice for the community and also removes a significant liability from our balance sheet.
The details aren't certain. The APA still needs to inspect the building and its foundation. The lease agreement between the village and the APA also hasn't been ironed out, but the agency has already mocked up what the property could become.
All right, so let me just sort of walk you through what this all looks like.
Back at the APA's office in Ray Brook, Barbara Rice brings out a few big poster boards that show the plans of what the place might look like.
Okay, so this building is, the historic building, the Paul Smith's Electric Light and Power Building. That is
what the APA would do there is renovate the interior and add a stairwell and elevator to make it ADA compliant. They'd also upgrade the powerhouse behind it, potentially turning it into the agency's boardroom. That whole space would be more public-facing, serving as a kind of visitor interpretive center. Then Rice points to the new building that would be a bit behind and to the left of it.
So the new construction will be along the Lake Street hillside, and that will be a 3-story building with an attached garage, and that will be approximately 19,000 square feet.
So in all, with the historic building in the front, the APA would have an office complex of about 28,000 square feet. That's a bit bigger than their current space. The APA has about 50 employees on staff. The agency would also build a 72-space parking lot, which could be used by the public on nights, weekends, and holidays. Rice says she's excited about being in a more central location.
This gives us the opportunity to kind of come out of the shadows a little bit. And I mean that figuratively. We're kind of pushed back here in Ray Brook, not highly visible.
If the agency moves to downtown Saranac Lake, they'd be in the heart of one of the park's most populated places. That's in line with one of the APA's missions, to push development into hamlet areas, to concentrate it into a downtown, rather than contributing to a kind of sprawl that you can now see in Ray Brook. Saranac Lake Mayor Jimmy Williams says he also thinks there could be a kind of generational impact for the village.
I love the idea of young folks passing by that place and seeing a potential career opportunity. Keep kids in the area with an avenue that's not the school, the prison, or the hospital.
There's still a lot of work left to do before this move is finalized. That includes within the APA, where some staff aren't thrilled about the agency leaving its longtime headquarters. There's a lot of history in that building and on that property. If the APA's move to downtown Saranac Lake is finalized, it likely wouldn't happen until 2026. Emily Russell, North Country Public Radio in Ray Brook and Saranac Lake.
We have more news all the time on our website, ncpr.org. Music today by Christopher Watts of Canton and Oscar Sarmiento of Potsdam. I'm David Summerstein, North Country Public Radio.